Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. I hope this comment doesn't rub people wrong, but one of my happiest days alive ever was back in March of 2020 when I heard that we could all work remotely. I was teaching at Washington Technology University at the time. I wouldn't say I had a dream job, but if I had to name two things that I disliked most about the job, the two things that made the job the heaviest in my heart were having to interact with colleagues, with their politics, right? You go to the office and people bring up what they did over the weekend, and sometimes people judge you for what you do over the weekend. They judge you for your lifestyle, your eating habits, and obviously the commute, right? Those two things probably were 90% of the stress of the job for me. The actual teaching, the dealing with the students, the having to learn how to use the different products at the campus, that was only 10% of the work. 90% was politics and commuting. And so when I heard that we could work remotely, it was like 90% of my work went poof. And I mean, we might have gotten a pay cut. I think my pay was cut 20% from top to bottom. I was getting a 70% raise. That's how I viewed it, at least. And so it was really nice. Now, right now, as I speak in 2023, there's a lot of people who want to continue working remotely. I do okay with the politics now. I still dislike the commute because it eats into my time, and it's literally a pay cut, right? I have to spend money to do it. If I could do all of my work remotely again, it would be like instantly getting a good raise, right? Maybe not as much as it was in 2020 because I'm no longer having difficult politics at work. So when I saw gas prices go up, I'm thinking, gee, how about we stop whining about gas prices and actually figure out who can continue to work remotely? The people who get to work remotely will benefit, obviously. Even the people who don't get the luxury of working remotely will also benefit from not as many people competing for the same gasoline, right? And unfortunately, we have the audacity to do that instead. The U.S. plans to sell emergency. Think about that. You got people who have a job they can do remotely. You're insisting they come in. But they can't afford their gasoline. So now you have to sell your emergency gasoline stockpiles, which you were thinking of using for a hurricane, to take care of those people who had a job they could do remotely, to take care of them so they can come to the office and be harassed and potentially get, driving is possibly one of the most dangerous things an average civilian will do on an everyday basis, right? Potentially get themselves hurt, certainly create a lot of stress. And right now as I speak, there's a lot of petty crime going on. I wouldn't be surprised if the added stress of having to drive contributes to anger problems, and it wouldn't be surprised in the aggregate. I mean, you might be able to withstand driving to work, but when millions and millions of additional drivers have to crowd the road, I wouldn't be surprised if a few hundred of them end up developing alcohol problems or drug problems, right? Who knows, right? Right now we have the audacity. The other news story I saw is that inflation is 3.18%. Let me give you an analogy of how they come up with bogus inflation rates like this. So back in 2020, the amount of gasoline I was using was obviously really low, right? Maybe only, 3% of my budget, 5% of my budget. Right now it's a lot higher, right? But gee, if we use that figure, inflation could look a whole lot better, right? What else were we doing in 2020? We certainly weren't taking flights anywhere. We were using a lot of electronic devices to communicate with our peers. Oh my God, I just got a new laptop. It's a lot cheaper and better than the one I bought in 2020, right? It has double as much RAM. It costs me less in terms of dollars, and so yeah. My laptop costs like a third if you adjust it for the RAM and the price of what it did in 2020, right? Oh, inflation's negative. Now, back in 2020, before we went into lockdown, I had a girlfriend, right? Nowadays, I like to go out by myself, so that dinner for one right now costs only a little bit more than dinner for two did back in 2020. Yeah, we should be accepting singles for who they are. Let's use that, right? Maybe it even went down a little bit, right? All right. Thought I would point out an analogy of how inflation is actually measured. That's not far from what they do, by the way. This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.